Hello, beautiful sisters in Christ. How are you? I hope that you're doing really well and you're staying safe and healthy during this time. I'm so thankful to be here with you and that we could be together and in a unique way. And I'm so thankful that By Designs Ministry was able to create something and put this together for us to still be able to encourage and build each other up. So thank you for being here and for watching. Today we're going to talk about relationships in the home during quarantine. And essentially we're going to be looking at how are we relating to those people that we're living with and that we're surrounded by, many of us 24/7 right now. What are we doing, and what are some things that maybe we could be doing or should be doing to nurture those relationships? So I want to start a little bit with my quarantine testimony, and maybe you have a similar one. The good, the bad, and the ugly is what I called it. During this time, since the middle of March, we've definitely had some great times together, my family and my husband and I. My husband and I have really been working on our relationship, and our marriage, on communicating with each other, and our relationship with God as well as part of our marriage and bringing Him more into that. It's been a really blessed time. However, there have also been times where we've gone days without barely even talking to each other, which has not been so good for us or for our family. Our daughter just recently turned 18 last month, April, and we had a big drive-by for her family and friends, and it was a really great celebration for her. So that was a really great time for her. However, she's a senior in high school, so there's been a lot of disappointments for her, and she also discovered shortly after she turned 18 that she didn't agree with our parenting style, and she let us know that. So that kind of got a little ugly, but that was fun. Any of you who have older teenagers know what I'm talking about. I did not expect this. It sort of blindsided us, but it's here. And our son is 15, and he has learned really how to show responsibility, and he's matured in his communication with us and showing us that he's really ready to have more responsibility and take on some more responsibilities of a man. However, he's done with his distance learning by 10:30 in the morning, and what do you do with a 15-year-old energetic boy for the rest of the day? We'll talk about that later, though. So we've definitely had our ups, our downs, our ugly moments. We've laughed, we've cried, we've yelled. I'm sorry to say, but it's the reality of things. And so maybe you're in a similar situation, and so maybe some of this will be relatable to you as well. So first and foremost, God has shown me, I guess I should say, reminded me of something during these last few months that is really important and critical to the well-being of our entire environment, and that is our thoughts. What do our thoughts look like? What are we allowing into our mind? What are we meditating on? Because what we're thinking about is going to have a huge impact on how we're relating to each other and how we're relating to God and how we are handling things. There's a few verses that I want to go over with you. The first one, I want to jump down to the second part of it, bringing every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Every thought. Ladies, that means every single thought that comes into our mind, we need to think about it. And is that an okay thought? Or is that something that I need to immediately put into my little thought garbage can and get rid of? And I've learned this recently, not too long ago. There have been days where I've maybe every 5-10 minutes, all of a sudden another thought comes in, and I need to, it's almost like a process of learning. And I need to stop and I need to say, okay, Tracy, is this something that is going to be good to think about? Is this something that you shouldn't be thinking about? And learning how to just take it captive immediately before it becomes a stronghold in my mind and in my life and comes out in my words and in my actions. So the beginning of the verse says, the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty in God for pulling down these strongholds. And I was looking at that word are. They are not carnal. And in my Bible, it's italicized. And I always wondered what that meant. And I still don't know, but God did show me something as I was looking at that. And I realized that the word are is present. And when Paul wrote this, it was present. But the Bible is still also relevant for us today. So the same struggles in our minds that we go through and the same process of taking those thoughts captive is the exact same thing they struggled with 3,000 years ago. And that's the exact same thing that Paul was encouraging them to be aware of and to be on guard of. And I thought that was kind of cool. That it's the Bible is just so circular. It's for yesterday, today, and tomorrow, and everything that they struggled back then are the same things that we struggle with now. So learning how to take those thoughts captive. So Paul, better than probably almost anybody, must have really had great lessons in how to do that. Okay, the next verse. For I know the plans I have for you. This is one of my favorite verses, Jeremiah 29:11. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. Ladies, God is not surprised by any of this. He's not taken aback by any of this. And reminding ourselves, if there's a day where you might wake up and barely be able to get some clothes on to make it through the day, remembering God has a great plan for me. He has plans for me to prosper and not to harm me. Recently, I wasn't even reading the book of Job. I don't know how it came to my mind, but God put Job on my heart, and I started thinking about it, and I went into the last chapter. I think it's the last chapter. And I saw where he says, he promises Job, because you were faithful and remained righteous, I am going to restore everything that you lost during this time. And not only that, he's going to restore it, and he promised to multiply it. So I was so encouraged by that, and I hope that encourages you too, ladies, that, we may have had things taken from us, vacations, even more serious family members who passed away, sicknesses, struggles with finances, but everything that has been taken from us, if we can remain righteous and faithful to the end, will be restored and multiplied. I am convinced of that. So hang in there on those mornings that you can barely get yourself dressed. In his hand is the life of every living thing and the breath of all mankind. In his hand, that old song you learn in Sunday school? He's got the whole world in his hands. He does. He does. He has our life. He has our breath in his hands. Isn't that just encouraging? And doesn't that just make you feel safer? It makes me feel so much more safe and secure knowing that God has my whole life in his hands. And of course, Deuteronomy, he goes with you. He will never leave us nor forsake us. And the one who loves God is known by God. Do you truly love God? If so, you are known by him. He knows you. He knows you inside and out better than you do. So use these if you struggle and if you're having some difficult days and you don't want to do anything, or you feel that you are incapable of doing anything, and you're scared or you're mad or you're anxious, whatever those emotions come in, take that thought captive and start meditating on some of these verses. Meditate on the word and get that in there, because then we can right ourselves. Then we can also make sure that we are starting that day off with our family members in the right direction. Okay, something else, this wasn't in my original talk, and for some reason God just kind of, one of those like aha moments that it's important to talk about. I was talking with a young girl probably about a month ago, and she's in a dating relationship, and they're younger, so they're both still living at home with their families. And she was saying how hard it is for them, that they can't hug, they can't touch, they can't hold hands. And especially for the young man, she was saying he's just having such a hard time with it. and experiencing this anger and frustration. And I got to thinking about it and I thought, I felt so sorry for them. And I wondered, well, I wonder what, I know her home life, how her home life is, but I wonder how his home life is. Are his family a group of huggers? Do they touch or are they kind of a little more introverted? And I realized that physical touch is so important. And so while we're home now with our families, I mean, I have some days where I will tell my family, this is a hugging day. Like, I'm going to hug y'all because I just need physical touch. I am a very social creature and I need that. And so we have some days where the kids are just going to know that mom's going to hug today and it's okay. We need that. And even if they kind of resist, I know that they need it too and that they appreciate it because we all need it. And if we're not getting it from anywhere else, we should be getting it from each other. My husband even said to me one day, he said, it's okay for you to give me a hug once in a while. And before you judge me, this coming from the man whose love language is time together, meaning like we could be on opposite ends of the couch, but as long as we are in the room together doing our own thing, he is happy as a clam. So, but it reminded me that he's struggling too. He still needs that physical touch as well, and not necessarily always being the one to initiate it. So important to hug, pat on the back, or rub of the arm, kiss on the head, whatever it is. I love this verse. If it is possible, as much as depends on you, live peaceably with all men. Let's talk a little bit about relating to each other in the home. So look at this picture. This family looks happy enough, right? But nobody's hugging, except for the one woman. Maybe it's her sister or her daughter. But when I showed my mother the picture, just this little side note. When I showed my mom the picture, she's a family historian, and she said, "Oh, I think that picture was taken in English. I think they're British." And I was like, "What? How do you know this?" And then I should have asked her, but I got to thinking. I was like, British don't hug. They don't touch. I wonder if that's how she knew that because nobody's arms are around anybody. But regardless, they still look happy enough, right? So let's talk about living peaceably and relating to each other and what we can do with that. So first we're going to talk about our spouses. If you're married, you know what it's like to be quarantined home with your spouse or maybe it's a sibling. This picture was taken of my husband and I in March. It was March 13th. It was Friday the 13th, and we had a little celebration. It was like the day before the governor of Connecticut said, stop all group gatherings, of more than I think 5 people. So I had a little celebration for him. We had a transplantiversary party. 1 year ago, I was blessed to be able to donate a kidney to my husband. And he's doing great. We're both doing great. So that was a little celebration. So we were able to get that party in right beforehand, but it's been a challenge for sure. He's a teacher, so he's been working from home. I was a preschool teacher. I was not working that job from home, so doing a little bit of per diem work and some other projects. And so I was home, and both of our children being home doing their education online. So all 4 of us were home together. So God showed me though something. And last summer, when I was getting ready for a talk, there's a group called Mastering Motherhood. And if you don't know them, you should check them out. They're in Connecticut, but they have chapters all over the state. And it's a group for mamas of all ages. And I usually speak to several of the different chapters each year. So over the summer, as I was preparing my talk, God showed me something a little different. And usually I talk about something about our thoughts and our thinking. But he put on my heart to talk instead about building up and encouraging the men in our life, whether it be our husbands, whether it be our fathers, our brothers, whatever stage in life we're at, even our sons, but building them up and encouraging them. And of course, I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of times when God puts something on my heart that's very strong, it's because I need to work on it. It's not just to share with other people, it's because I am going through it too. And he's reminding me of something that I need to be doing. So, of course, I was struggling with that. So he's like, you're not only going to, deal with it yourself, but I'm going to make sure that it's in the forefront of your mind. So you're going to be talking about it, to all these different groups across the state. Yay. Little did I know at the time that I'd have the opportunity to be practicing that 24/7. So I got to tell you, ladies, it hasn't always been pretty, but it's really encouraging to see the result of it when I do it. And it's a real blessing to me. When I don't nag him about picking up the dirty socks off the living room floor, or letting the dirty dishes go, or little things like that. Just being a little kinder, being a little more gentler when I speak, saying thank you when he empties the dishwasher, even though I do it every day, things like that. Thanking him for, the hard work that he's still working at home, and he's still dedicated to his job to supporting our family. They're going through just as much as we are. And oftentimes, I know for me, I forget that because he always looks so tough. He always looks like he's got it together for the most part, and then I realize that when we are going through things, who do we go to? We pick up the phone, right? We call our friends, we call our sister, we call our mom. We've got our whole little posse of people that we can reach out to, even if we can't get together. Or maybe we will get together and go for a walk or social distance outside or something. Guys typically keep it in. At least I know my guy does. Both my guys do, my son too. And so who do they go for when they need that replenishment or they need that nurturing? They come to us, right? So they don't usually go to their friends or reach out to other people. They usually come to us. So I almost feel like it's sort of our job also to be able to give them what they need. We're their helpmate. We are there to help and support them. And when they're down, we can help pick them up. And so this time of quarantine, and not only this, but also the riots and everything else that's going on, our guys can't do much about it. The pandemic, they can't do anything about it. And a lot of guys are like doers, fixers, and they can't. And I think that's making them even feel more helpless about things. Of course we can pray, but they can't do anything physically with their hands that's going to resolve this overnight. And I think that's also a frustration that maybe they don't even realize, but I do think it's there internally and that they're kind of trying to have to work through and deal with as well. And so if we're constantly knocking them down and getting on their backs to, clean up after themselves if they happen to leave something out, or, they didn't say this right, or they didn't do this, or they forgot to take out the garbage or whatever it is, I think that's just it's kicking them while they're down, So it's really important to make sure that we're building them up and establishing and growing in our relationship with them while we have the opportunity. Now, if your husbands or you, one or the other, are first responders or essential workers and are out, of course, it's a little different for you. But then that's even stressful as well because, when they or you come home at the end of the day, that's a stressful job to have to be out there, and living amidst that fear and that anxiety of being wary of other people. So even that at the end of the day is still much of a stress on everybody. Okay, relating to our children now. These are my beautiful children. This picture was taken sort of at the beginning of quarantine. We had a quarantine family Wii game night. And if you remember the video game, the Wii, we bought it when our kids were little and we haven't played it in years, but we pulled it out and we've been bowling and playing tennis and baseball, and it's been a lot of fun. So this was one of our family Wii nights. So let's talk about our children. It is so difficult to parent and raise kids in today's world as it is. And then to add to this, the distance learning. and being home all the time and not being able to do things that they would normally do, see their friends and play their school sports and go to their clubs and their school clubs. And it's really difficult. So let's talk first about the younger children. There's a few things that I just want to encourage you to think about if you haven't already, and I'm sure you probably have a laundry list of other things also. But here's a few things that I found. My background is psychology and education. I've done a lot of parenting support over the years. And so during that time, one of the biggest things that the research has found and that I've found over and over again with parents is creating a routine. If you don't have one, it's not too late, ladies. You can start creating it now. And in fact, it's important for us to have routine too. But kids thrive on structure. They need this so badly. And the research shows that even if they resist, and they might resist and fight and argue about it, but it's almost like that pushing, but then they need it. So when they get it, then it's like they can pull back and relax. And when there's chaos in the house and they don't have it, they're almost going to act up more because they don't know this consciously, but because they're looking for that structure and those boundaries and that routine. So creating a routine for them. I know the school year is coming to a close soon, but even in the summer, it's good to have a looser routine, but still a routine, include outside time, get outside together, exercise, go for walks, some quiet reading time individually as well. Whatever it is, whatever works for your family to put in there, but definitely so important to create that routine for them. And then tap into resources. And I'm guessing that they'll probably be available over the summer as well. But the school social worker has been a great resource for many families right now during this time. And they've been trained in things like this. I have a friend whose son, I think he's 11 or 12. He's a great kid, lots of fun, great student, very friendly, has a lot of friends, good athlete. He was just struggling. It's almost like he just didn't want to do the work, but there was something more. He was just really struggling with it. And they reached out to the social worker and, just weekly calls or, kind of contact. And so I know several families who have been able to tap into that resource, and it's been very helpful for them. So definitely, if you feel you need it, there's no stigma to it. There's no diagnosis that's needed, or, you might think, well, my kid's a great kid. They don't, there's nothing quote unquote that's out of the ordinary with them or nothing wrong. They shouldn't need this. But we're all going through these things, and kids are handling this very differently too, from each other and from us. So definitely look into that if you feel that you need it or it would be beneficial. And then finally, be flexible with screen time. When I get to the teenagers, you're going to hear me talk about screen time in a different way. But be flexible. Screen time is my arch enemy. I fight. I feel like I fight with it all the time with my kids, myself, my husband. I mean, our whole family. And it's important to have a balance. I know, I know the effects that it can play on the brain. I know the effects it has on the cortex, on sleep patterns, on physical and emotional and mental health over the years. But for kids, this is really a time when they can also get together with friends, whether it's on Zoom or Google Meets or Hangouts or, I don't know, email or just, FaceTiming or whatever it is. They can't see their friends. So this is a really tricky thing. Don't compromise your values, but definitely give yourself a little bit of leeway on this. And don't let yourself feel guilty about it. The other day, my son played a video game with his friends, and that's one way. A lot of them they don't text, they don't call each other anymore, and a lot of times they relate through a game, which I don't like, but I also can't control everybody else's kids. So he wanted to play a game with them because the three of his good friends were already on, and he wanted to get on and be able to hang out with them. So we let him, and I realized, like, as I'm making dinner, all of a sudden that like 2 hours had gone by. I haven't seen him. It might have even been more. I hate to say that, but I hadn't seen him. He's down in the basement playing. And so I called him up, and You know, I felt awful. I felt like the worst parent. But then you know what? The next day, I modified it a little bit. You know, God's mercies are new every day. And so we can have mercy on ourselves too and give ourselves a little bit of grace. So the next day, I just told him, "You're not on quite as much today." And he was fine with that. He was fine. But it is important to be able to give them some of that time and to have flexibility. In all of this, we need to have flexibility because nothing is normal about life right now. Okay, let's talk about teenagers, that crazy breed that are still human but don't always act it. All right, first thing, make yourself available. This is important, I feel, because a lot of times we think that teenagers are more independent now. They don't need us that much. You know, we're not changing diapers. We're not, you know, feeding them. You know, they're doing more on their own. So we tend to step back and just leave them be. But really, they still need us to be very involved in their lives. And so sometimes when my kids are up in their room, I'll go up and I'll just sit on the bed and I'll just sit there and look at them, wait a couple minutes, and, you know, I'll kind of get the looking up from the screen. Can I help you? No, just hanging out. What are you doing? You know, how's school? You have homework? What are you working on? What are you reading? You know, what are you watching? And just talking. And I find that sometimes they just kind of start talking. It might be a little awkward at first, and they're like, "Why are you hanging out in my room?" But sometimes the conversation gets going, or there might be something on their chest, or I might go in at just the right time where they're struggling with something and they need somebody to talk to, but they're not necessarily going to make the effort to get up out of bed and to go find mom or dad or whoever and talk to them. But it's a great opportunity that maybe there is something. And if not, you're just making yourself known. You're making your presence there. You're making yourself available so that they know that you still care and that you're available should they want to talk. So going to that then, it is also important to give them space. And the opposite of what we just talked about is, you know, being the helicopter parent and hovering all the time. And in the beginning of quarantine, I will admit, I don't know that I would say I was a helicopter parent, but I had a hard time finding my niche in life when we all were home. I mean, I would have my days home where I would write and prepare talks and research and do these other things. But with everybody at home, I couldn't get into that routine. And so I would just wander. And I kind of wandered my husband, see what he's working on, go to my daughter's room, you know, I'd go to my son and kind of just watch them work, you know, but I was making myself available, but then I was really just kind of lost. So I realized over the weeks that I'd step back and definitely giving them their space. You know, this is almost a grieving time for everybody too, possibly real grieving if, you know, people have lost loved ones or friends, but also just a grieving of a loss of almost a normal life, you know, during this time. And so I think it is important to give them their space and let them have it, let them grieve, let them work it out and process this in their own way. And then a lot of times I will find that they will come to me to talk about something when they're ready. You know, sometimes I'll be working on my computer and they need to talk. And a lot of times it's okay to say, you know, I need 5 minutes. I got to wrap this up, and then give them your full attention. But when they come down, give them your full attention because that means they're definitely looking for something. And get them out of their rooms and away from their screens. Teenagers, well, in my home, I think my kids are on their screens more as teenagers than they were as younger kids. And so I don't know if that's just because we've given them more leeway or because it's become so much more prevalent in our lives. But so I know the importance of also getting off your screen. I mean, I know some days that my eyes are just bugging and my head is pounding, and I know that I've spent too much time in front of my computer that day. So getting them out to do things, you know, go outside, throw the ball with your kids, or, just sit down and chat and talk. Sunday mornings is a great time. We do church virtually, and then when it's done, we kind of just sit there for a while, and I'll check in with them. It's like our check-in time. I'll ask them how things are going, if there's anything that they want to talk about, anything bothering them. Friends of mine, they were telling me that they had a really hard time Sunday mornings listening to church, because all the kids, they have 3 children, all the kids were gathered, and they just wanted to talk. It was just a time, it was just a social time. They just wanted to talk. And, she felt bad, but I was like, don't feel bad. Like, this is great. I'm thinking about this later. And it was like, this is great. I mean, you can pull in a family devotion to do, but giving that time too of just talking and spending with your kids is is really showing them, God's love, and how God's always available for us, and just talking to them and listening to them. And maybe there's something that has been on their heart or been bothering them that you didn't know about. And this is a time where they might feel safe to talk about it. So find those pockets of time too. And then finally, remember that story back in the beginning with that young couple? Don't stop hugging them. Don't stop, even if they're 18 years old. Don't stop. They still need it. And they will realize that, even if they tell you that they don't. Okay, let's talk about finding ways to occupy our time. So, using this time to build relationships, and a lot of this, again, you've probably been doing, but I just want to reiterate it. So, 2 relationships I want to talk about. One is our relationship with God, our vertical relationship. I don't know if you've ever seen that analogy, the vertical relationship with God, and then the expanding relationship with others. It makes a cross. But our relationship with God, I have realized during this time how little time I actually spend with God during my days, during normal life. Between getting up for work, getting everybody out the door, kids off to school, taking care of the animals before I get myself out, packing lunches, spending the day at work crazy. And by 2 o'clock, I realized, other than like a small prayer before lunch, did I even really bring God into my day at all? And then you get home and forget it. It's cooking dinner and after school activities or helping with homework or, meetings or, and then 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 8 o'clock comes and like crashing on the couch, ready to just decompress and be done. And all of a sudden you're in bed and you're like, oh, good night, God. I'll talk to you in the morning when I say good morning and have, my little time and then I'll see you that night. So he's really been showing me. I feel like this time has really been a gift for us ladies. I feel if 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 we're healthy and if we're in a place where we're feeling safe and we're feeling um, you know everything is okay, that it's a gift from God to grow our relationship with him. Even if you're working, life is definitely less stressful. Like I said, there's no activities afterwards, or we don't have the temptation of going out to do things much because we're trying to stay away. So use this time, if you haven't been already, use this time to work on your relationship with God. Ask him, what do you think he wants to show you or teach you during this time? It's a great time to just dig into the Word, do a Bible study, read through a book of the Bible, whatever it is. But really work on spending that time in that relationship with God. I feel like he's almost just like handed us and said, here you go. This is your time. This is time I'm giving you now that you don't normally have, to deepen your relationship with me. And then that way, when you go back to your crazy normal life, your relationship with me will be stronger, and I will be there, and I will be more present, or you will know that I'm more present. So also relationships with our families, talking about doing things together. Some examples I have, and again, if you've been on social media, you've probably seen a lot of great things that people are doing, and this is probably nothing new to you, but playing games together, doing puzzles, cooking together, going for hikes, going to the beach. We took a drive to the beach one day and just spent maybe an hour there, but we've got lunch. We picked it up. We brought it. The kids threw the football. We went for a little walk. I think that's all you have to do. I mean, it was a couple hours, but it was perfect, perfect amount of time It was a beautiful day, not too crowded. Do a scavenger hunt. Come up with a scavenger hunt around your house for the kids, or let the kids create a scavenger hunt for you guys. Do a contest. Make up a contest for each other. So many great things. Sit and chat. So many great things that we can do, but it is really important to keep those relationships growing and building. And what better time than when most of us are home, working on that. Okay. Oh, one thing I do want to add, I want to go back quickly. Another thing is building your spiritual relationship too with each other and God during that time. You know, doing family devotions, studying a book of the Bible. I've always wanted to do Revelation with the kids, and we're doing that now. We're about halfway through, and it's a half an hour, maybe one night a week. Some weeks it's hard depending on our daughter's work schedule and activities and things like that. Some things that are starting to pick up a little bit, but we're trying to do one night a week for a half an hour, and that time is just we're reading and we're discussing what we've read and sharing and talking and if you're able to really focus on that too and build your spiritual walk together as a family, that will draw you not only closer to God, but closer to each other too in that time. Okay. While it's important to build our relationships and work on our relationship with God and our relationship with each other and how do we interact with each other and caring for our families and caring for our husbands and caring for the kids, it is so important to remember the care and keeping of us. We have got to take care of ourselves. We need to remember that because, like the old saying, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. It's true. I feel like it's true. If I have a rough day or I'm in a little bit of a bad mood, like, I don't know why, but it affects the whole rest of my family. Whereas, like, dad could be in a bad mood or one of the kids could be in a bad mood, but as long as, like, I'm constant and I'm doing okay, like, they can have their little mood, but everybody else, the flow of the family overall is like good. I don't know why. So it's just shown me so much more how it is important to take care of ourselves. A few things we could do: go out for a cup of coffee. Just go sit in your car, go sit in a park somewhere with a cup of coffee and just listen to a podcast, just pray. Don't do anything. Don't think. Just sit there and stare at the woods, listen to the birds, and maybe God will speak to you during that time. Go for a hike, bring yourself to the beach, bake, take up a new hobby. I've discovered Pinterest. I knew Pinterest. I've been on Pinterest for years, but I'm really starting to explore it more and link it to my websites and my blog and, how to make all these little fancy things. And it's been really fun. Also, clean a room. I spent one full day cleaning one bathroom in my house, like top to bottom. I haven't done it in like 11 years. But I went through everything, pulled out the cabinets, I wiped everything down, cleaned the walls, and it felt so good after, but it was like one thing, one room that I said, this is my goal. That's all I'm doing today. And it was wonderful. Get yourself organized. Maybe you're not organized, or maybe your space isn't organized. Get yourself organized or rearrange things so that you feel you feel restful and you feel at peace when you're in that space. And then when life gets crazy, you have that space that's already nice and peaceful and been created for you. Finally, looking at photo albums, either by yourself or this is a great thing to do with your family too. We do this a lot and we just talk about the pictures and we remember the old memories and trips that we've taken and memories that the kids might have that are different from us. And we just talk about it and share. Or do it on your own too and relive some of those great times or some of those things that, you learned during that time that you had totally forgotten about. That's a great, great activity. Like I said, we do it a lot of times, like my husband and I will do it, and the kids will kind of come in and join a little bit, but that's a lot of fun. And lastly, there might be something that you are struggling with personally that's really been kind of blaring its lights at you, those neon lights that are saying, this is not good, fix this. And God might be working with you, speaking to you about that and wants to work on it with you. pray about that. And this might be a great time for you to really focus on that. Go through a Bible, take yourself through a Bible study on it. Write down verses that can help you. A lot of my struggles are my thoughts, which is why I focus and I blog and I speak on our thoughts. But write down verses for whatever that struggle is that can help you and start proclaiming them. And then when life gets crazy again, you've got that foundation, girl. You can go back to that card or that paper or those notes on your phone, and you can just continue to proclaim them and confess them over your life because you've taken the time now to go through it and to fix it and to dig things out and make it right. Let's try and remember this. I love this verse, and I'm going to read this from down here because it's a little bit different. Kind words are like a honeycomb, sweet to the soul and health to the bones. Let's remember that. What are we speaking to our husbands? What are we speaking to our kids? Are we speaking life into our home? Are we speaking joy? Are we speaking peace? Are we speaking love? Or are we speaking all the bad things, all the negative things, all the irritations, all the fears, all the frustrations, all the anxieties, all the anger? Let's think about it. And as much as depends on you, live peaceably with each other. And we will get through this together, and we will get through stronger. God bless you. Take care. Bye-bye.